At the time, it sounded like fear. Later, it would sound like prophecy. What happened that night was fast, violent, relentless. There were no witnesses, no clear timeline, only fragments, bloody footprints, a glove, and a trail that seemed to lead directly back to OJ. But here's where the story twists. Because instead of surrendering quietly, he ran. It wasn't a typical police pursuit. It was slow, almost surreal. A white Ford Bronco moving down the freeway, surrounded by police, broadcast live across the nation. Millions watched in silence. No sirens blaring, no dramatic swerves. Just a man sitting in the back seat, holding a gun to his head. The country froze. Was this a chase or a farewell? Inside that Bronco, something deeper was unfolding. Not panic, but control. A man who had spent his entire life performing, now staging the most dramatic moment of all. And the world couldn't look away. When the trial began, it wasn't just about guilt or innocence. It became something bigger. A battle of narratives, of race, of power, of perception. The courtroom turned into a stage. And every detail, every glove, every drop of blood became part of a story that was constantly shifting. It began with blood. Not the kind you see in movies. Clean, dramatic, almost artistic. This was different. Dark, sticky, real. On the night of June 12, 1994, in the quiet neighborhood of Brentwood, Los Angeles, the illusion of safety shattered. A dog, restless, barking, paced near a lifeless body. Neighbors would later say the silence that followed felt unnatural, like the world itself was holding its breath. When police arrived, they didn't just find a crime scene. They found a nightmare. Nicole Brown Simpson lay outside her home, brutally murdered. Nearby, Ronald Goldman, young, unsuspecting, his life cut short in a moment of unimaginable violence. The scene was chaotic, savage, deeply personal, and almost immediately, one name rose above the rest. O.J. Simpson, a man the world thought it knew. Before the headlines, before the trial, before the fall. He was a hero, NFL legend, charismatic, charming, untouchable. To the public, O.J. Simpson wasn't just famous, he was beloved. A smiling face on television, a symbol of success, a man who seemed to transcend everything. But behind closed doors, a different story had been quietly unfolding. Police records, domestic disputes, whispers of fear, and at the center of it all, Nicole Brown Simpson. Friends would later recall her words, not as accusations, but as warnings. He's going to kill me, and he's going to get away with it. The prosecution believed the case was airtight. DNA evidence, motive, history, but the defense, they didn't just challenge the facts. They changed the story. They planted doubt, not just in the evidence, but in the system itself. And then came the moment no one would forget. The glove. In front of the jury, O.J. Simpson struggled to put on a blood-stained glove. It didn't seem to fit, and in that single moment, everything changed. Logic gave way to perception. Certainty dissolved into doubt, because the case was never just about what happened. It was about what people believed happened. And belief is far more powerful than truth. October 3rd, 1995. The world stopped again. Not for a chase this time, but for a decision. Guilty or not guilty? When the words were spoken, the reaction was instant and divided. Not guilty. Some celebrated. Others stood in silence. But beneath it all, there was something else. A question that refused to go away. How does a man go from national hero to the center of one of the most brutal murder cases in history? Was it rage, control, ego, or something deeper, something hidden beneath years of fame and image? Because here's the unsettling truth. The trial didn't prove what happened. It only proved what couldn't be proven. And that's what makes this story so dangerous. Not the violence, not the evidence, but the uncertainty. Life moved on, at least on the surface. But shadows lingered. A civil trial would later find O.J. Simpson responsible for the deaths. Yet even that couldn't close the case. Because closure requires certainty, and this case never had. What if the truth was always there, just buried beneath noise, bias, and performance? What if the most important detail was the one everyone overlooked? Because in the end, this wasn't just a murder case. It was a mirror, reflecting how easily perception can override reality, how quickly doubt can reshape truth, and how a man, once trusted by millions, could walk free. Because years later, new theories would emerge. Forgotten details would resurface, and one question, simple, terrifying, unresolved, would begin to echo louder than ever before. happened that night. And more importantly, who else knew? The verdict was not guilty. But for many, the story never felt finished. Because beneath the headlines, beneath the courtroom drama, there were details. Details that didn't disappear. Details that didn't make sense. And details that some believe were buried. At the crime scene, there was blood everywhere. But it wasn't random. It told a story. Drops leading away from the bodies, across the walkway, and out into the night. And then, another discovery. Blood found at O.J. Simpson's residence, on the driveway, inside his car, and most disturbingly, inside his home. The prosecution believed this was the thread that tied everything together. A silent witness. Impossible to ignore, but the defense saw something different. They didn't deny the blood. They questioned how it got there. Was it contamination, mishandling, or something far more intentional? Because if the evidence couldn't be trusted, then nothing could. Tonight, we look at the evidence they don't talk about. At the crime scene, there was blood everywhere. But wasn't random. It told a story. Drops leading away from bodies, across the walkway, and out into the night. And then, another discovery. Blood found at O.J. Simpson's residence, on the driveway, inside his car, and most disturbingly, inside his home. The prosecution believed this was the thread that tied everything together. A silent witness. Impossible to ignore, but the defense saw something different. They didn't deny the blood. They questioned how it got there. Was it contamination, mishandling, or something far more intentional? Because if the evidence couldn't be trusted, then nothing could. 2 gloves. One found at the crime scene. The other at O.J. Simpson's property. A perfect match. At least, that's what it seemed. But the moment O.J. tried it on in court, everything shifted. The glove appeared too small, too tight, too wrong. But what the jury didn't see clearly was everything surrounding that moment. Latex gloves underneath, dried blood stiffening the leather, hands positioned carefully, deliberately. Was it truly a failed fit, or a perfectly staged illusion? Because sometimes, what you see isn't what actually happened. Then came the crack in the prosecution's case. A name that would alter everything. Mark Furman, a lead detective, key witness, a man who had discovered crucial evidence. But during the trial, a tape surfaced, recordings of Furman using racist language, repeatedly, violently, and just like that, the narrative shifted. The defense didn't just attack the evidence, they attacked the messenger. If Furman couldn't be trusted, could anything he touched be trusted? Including the glove. The defense introduced a theory that would divide the nation. What if the evidence had been planted? What if the investigation wasn't just flawed, but manipulated? It was a dangerous idea, but a powerful one, because it didn't require proof, only doubt. And once doubt exists, it spreads through the jury, through the public, through the entire case. 2 years later, a different courtroom, a different standard, and a different outcome. In 1997, a civil jury found O.J. Simpson responsible for the deaths. Not criminally guilty, but legally liable, ordered to pay millions. It was the closest thing to justice the victims' families would receive. But even then, it didn't answer the real question. This case wasn't just about evidence. It was about psychology. How a man could maintain composure under pressure. How charm could coexist with darkness. How perception could overpower reality. Because the most unsettling part of this story isn't what we know. It's what we don't, and what we may never know. Years after the trial, a strange moment would surface. A moment many dismissed, but others couldn't ignore. A book, a hypothetical confession, words written as fiction, but sounding eerily like truth. Pause. If I did it, why would a man say that? Why would he describe it? Unless there was something he needed the world to hear, without ever truly admitting it. We uncover the most chilling piece of this entire story, the version of events told by the only person who knows exactly what happened that night. And once you hear it, you may never see this case the same way again.